to Danielle Dimartino booth on all of this. We've got Adam Lashinsky, Dan Geltrude as well. Danielle, the one argument that I've just had a hard time getting my hands around, political views notwithstanding, is this idea that it's going to help with inflation. Usually, the rule of thumb is the more the government spends, the more you ignite inflation. It's just by degree. So one of the things I've heard expressed by a number of Democrats this past week on the show is this idea that, this will tamp that down, that if you can control drug prices, there's a component for that. It's also going to help people who heretofore have had a real stretch with money, afford more now, and child care guarantees. But I just don't see it. I don't see how that math adds up. What about you?
I don't either. Earlier this week, in congressional testimony, Treasury Secretary Yellen insisted that the fiscal stimulus that's been pumped into the economy over the last 2 years was not in any way responsible for the inflation, which is just a ludicrous assumption. I've heard from so many different families across America that have checked in with me and said, you know what, I don't need this child tax credit in cash deposited every single month. I really do wish that the fiscal spending was thought out better. And I think that that's why the voice of Joe Manchin and John Tester of Montana and other moderate Democrats, I believe that's why their voices are becoming so much louder. They're saying we really need to step back and see the effect of all this fiscal spending and craft legislation more reasonably so that we're not giving money to people who don't need it, who are just injecting all of this money into the economy, buying things they don't necessarily need and igniting this inflation, Neil.
Adam, I try to always hear people out on the arguments that they make that don't seem nonsensical at the surface. But one of the things I've heard is that because this massive spending package includes child care credits and the rest, it will make a big difference and people will go back to work. Now, we didn't have any of this child care credits, universal help on a lot of other things prior to the pandemic, and we had gotten as low as 3.5% unemployment. Now, I know the pandemic maybe changed things, that child care got to be a big issue. I get that. But not enough, I would think, to all of a sudden, A, get them running back to work, or B, not having any effect on inflation. I just don't see it. What say you?
Neil, I think your most important words there were all of a sudden. I think all of the politicians are talking past each other and themselves on this notion that anything is going to happen all of a sudden. If this bill is about the future, it's about the medium and long term. That's why if you like it, you should like it, and if you don't like it, you shouldn't like it.
But those child care credits and the other things, they kick in immediately, and that's the kind of thing that could be inflationary, no?
And I think there's conditions that weren't present before the pandemic, but before your point, again, if you want to support this, those will be things that will help immediately. I agree with you. I don't see anything alleviating inflation in those tax credits. But I think the inflation is mostly about the supply chain problems, not these other things. And so
you don't think that exacerbates it? Just curious.
I don't think it will exacerbate the supply chain problems. No, I think those are things that are going to take time to work out.
No, I'm talking about inflation. Does it exacerbate inflation? You don't think it does?
Not next week. No, I highly doubt that.
Oh, well, I'm not talking about next week, but next year is good enough. But Dan, where are you on this? Because every time the government comes in to help or to deal with something, you could make a pretty good argument that it might help some spending of any sort on such a large scale. And I think it was quite proper for Danielle to go back over a couple of years and all these packages that have occurred under Democrat and Republican administrations. I cannot help but think that is eventually going to lead to a push up in prices. I mean, we saw it even during the 60s with the Vietnam War spending. Inflation moved up. Now, nothing to the degree we saw in the 70s and all, but government spending, higher prices do tend to go hand in hand.
Neil, as economists are talking about the impact of this bill on inflation, you hear some saying, well, it'll only have a little bit of impact, or it may not have any, or it's really going to impact inflation heavily, meaning it goes up. But who's out there saying it's going to help, who's not a politician who's looking to pass this bill? That Build Back Better is the answer to everything. We have a supply side problem right now. So until we get policies in place to start addressing that, and yes, supply chain is one of them, but it goes beyond that. It goes to why do we have people not being more incentivized to get back to work? We have a labor shortage. If you want to have that supply side start to meet demand and bring down inflation, do the things you have to do to get people back to work. And let's get a hold on energy. Now, prices are coming down right now, but let's get back to being energy independent, Neil. To have to rely on OPEC or foreign countries is a bad move for us.
Well, no, you raise a good point,
but
Danielle, let me point it out. It's a very good one, that a lot of this is just coming out of the pandemic and the demand that shot up. I get that, and obviously that's led to this run-up in prices here. But I am wondering, going forward right now, whether in a year we just saw, or a month where 4 million plus people have left the workforce, that anything is going to incentivize them to come back.
Well, look, Neil, again, I think you have to go down to the brass tacks here. And the fact that the child tax credit, again, there are some surveys that suggest it's going to 90% of U.S. families. That's ludicrous. Again, not all of these people need it. And if it's enough money, cash, that we're giving families that they're choosing to stay out of the workforce, which is pushing up wages for small business owners.
But it might not be that. Maybe all the money in the world isn't going to bring them back into the workforce. Maybe there's something bigger going on here for which all of this big spending might be a waste of time.
It's a complete waste. Neil, we have incentivized Americans to stay out of the workforce. That is not the American way, and throwing more money at the situation is not going to resolve this issue. Period. End. Adam, what do you think?
There's structural problems in the economy that people are hurting, despite Danielle talking to people who aren't hurting. This legislation is trying to address that. I just want to point out, Neil, if we want to look at history lessons, you raised the 60s. The 50s are maybe more instructive, when we spent heavily on doing things that changed society for the better. That's what the administration is trying to do with this bill.
Well, we didn't have all the debt we do now. We didn't have all the mess we have now. So it's a little different. I was way too young. I wasn't even born. I didn't come in until, all right, about the 50s. But I get what you're saying. All right, guys, I want to thank you all very, very much here. We have a lot